to a lecturer of law in the University of Hull in the United Kingdom, Dr. Misbau Lateef, on the news at 7. Dr. Lateef, thanks for joining us on the news. The sentencing in this case is due on the 5th of May. What's the maximum sentence in the case of this nature, and just how significantly important is this in the United Kingdom?
All right. Good evening, and thank you for inviting me to your show. Like you rightly highlighted in your opening statement, the judgment today, was a landmark in the UK. You could have up to 12 months, I meant to say, but for an indictment, like we have seen in the present case, there is a potential for a life imprisonment or less. And I say less because the law actually prescribes life imprisonment as a maximum. However, under the sentencing guideline, a judge may, upon the fact or the evidence before the court, decide to go below the maximum, and that could be bring the sentencing therefore maybe to some number of years, which I can't really speculate now, but it is safe to say that the maximum imprisonment for this kind of offense is life imprisonment.
Well, the doctor in this case, the Royal Free consultant who was supposed to carry out the surgery, had concluded that the donor was unsuitable after learning that he didn't have the required advice about the risks of surgery, and that he also lacked the funds to cater to himself what he called a lifelong care that he would need. What's the due process in the UK in search of a donor of this type?
Well, the due process basically is that whoever is going to present himself or herself, must be seen to have done that purely on a humanitarian ground. And it does not really matter whether they are related or not. However, Section 3 of the Modern Slavery Act defines, exploitation to include where a person was induced, whether financially or otherwise, or if someone, collaborates or connives with others to encourage the traveling or the movement of persons from one territory to another, with a view to exploiting them, and in this case, to exploit their organ. So in that case, under the law, it will not matter whether the victim, was a minor or a child or even an adult. So the underlying point of factor here is that an exploitation must be established. And I think that is what the jury, have found today when they said they found, based on the evidence presented before them, that the victim was actually exploited. That is, it was trafficked, and it does not matter whether the real act, which is the transplant, has taken place or not. So basically, the focus here is that whoever is going to be a donor must do it purely on ground of humanitarian basis. That is, somebody who has come forward to do it voluntarily without any inducement.
I get you, Dr. Lateef. Very quickly, is there any hope for the Ekeremadus? Can this case be appealed?
Well, when there is life, we say there is hope. Of course, there is hope for them. And for me, the hope starts from what the judge may also likely do on the 5th of May, because the jury system also allows the judge, the power to actually reject, and I would say in very limited cases, however, to reject a verdict of conviction by the jury. So if the judge found, for example, that there were not sufficient evidence to reach the kind of conclusion that the jury has returned, the judge may actually reject the verdict of the jury. Then aside that, if the judge accepts the verdict, then there is also the possibility of appealing to the Court of Appeal at the same Old Bailey Court, and then also to the Supreme Court, just like we have in the Nigerian legal system. So there is a right of appeal up to the Supreme Court of the UK.
Law lecturer at the University of Hull, Dr. Misbau Lateef, thank you for talking to us on the news tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.